From the News Channel 5 Network, this is Morning Line with Nick Barris.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us on Morning Line. I am Nick Barris here with you on a Tuesday. You know, it's interesting. We have the holidays coming up, Thanksgiving, Christmas, all this time when, maybe more so than in the past year or two because things have improved a bit with COVID. You're going to spend more time with family. You see them face to face. And, you may for the first time in a while get to see an uncle, an aunt, your parents or whatever face to face. And realize, oh, gosh, they've aged a little more than we thought they had, or things have changed in their living situations. You have to address that. We're going to get into all of these types of things about be it assisted living, the legal things that you need to deal with as you age and such, as we're going to talk elder care law this morning, because you may decide someone needs help all of a sudden that you hadn't seen in a while, and you're going to recognize that. And the question is how to start. And let me just tell you, someone who personally has gone through this with my aging parents, it is amazing. And I like to think I'm a fairly smart guy. I'm not a genius by any means, but I like to think I'm lucid. There is so much you don't know. And the stuff that you don't know can make moving forward with your elderly family, loved ones, so much more difficult. And if you know these stuff, it makes it so much easier. And that's why we have experts like Chris Johnson joining us from Takis and McGinnis. Good morning to you. It's good to have you here.
Thank you, Nick. It's very good to be here.
You're a lawyer.
I am.
And you've been with Takis and McGinnis. Everyone knows Tim Takis, who had been coming on this show for years. And you've been on, how many years now have you been there?
3 years.
3 years. Well, and I remember the first time you came on after Tim hired you. Now, Tim, so good, and he's someone I've learned so much from, and I was like, gosh, he's also a stickler. How good is this guy? And then, you came on that day, and I still remember after the show, Rick Casepier and I were talking about, boy, he's sharp. You do a really good job of explaining some of the things to folks in a way they can understand it. And I'll tell you, legal issues, that's it. And would you agree? I mean, there's a lot of people, like myself, I'm in the news biz, I follow it, but I have learned so much. And I try to share it with my friends who I know their elderly parents or loved ones are going to get to the point where they're going to need some help. I say, do this, do that. And they just don't want to listen. And I guess I was like them at one point. And the only reason we ended up listening is certain circumstances forced our hand. Yep. You and Tim and Barbara helped refer me to a lawyer who does what you do in Boise, where my folks. Without them and without your advice and Tim's, we would have been dead in the water. Mm-hmm. It's amazing what people don't know.
It is. And like you said, life circumstances, a lot of people, we see them when they're finally forced. Their hand is forced and they don't have any other alternatives.
Time to deal with it.
It is, because if you do it ahead of time, you can put yourself in so much better of a position. I always say it's like arranging pieces on the chessboard. You want to set them up early and have your bid for victory rather than scrambling at the end. And the biggest thing is people just, they don't really want to deal with it. And I had someone, one of my favorite lines is, as I went through my planning, I said, I looked at them, I said, here you go, you guys are all set. And they were in early, and I said, whenever life circumstances throw you a curveball, you'll be ready. And they said, Chris, why doesn't everyone do this? And I looked at them and I said, because they just don't know about it. And that's why we want to get the word out, because getting that good word out, it helps more people. And that's what you're trying to do, speaking with your friends.
Speaking, and that's what this show's about.
That's right.
You're right, they don't want, but part of it for us was, you don't want to deal with it. And I've got very good friends who are good people, and they don't want to deal with it or whatever. And the folks themselves, oftentimes, they were going to deny that they need help, and they want to stay where they are, but you know better. And yet, in the back of your mind, if you're a good person, it's constantly nagging you. It's nagging you. It's like this little weight on your shoulder that, mom and dad at some point are not going to be able to care for themselves, or mom and dad are going to run out of money. What are they going to do when they just have Social Security? And you erroneously think that, oh, well, the federal government's going to pay for their nursing home care. Wrong. In certain circumstances, as I'll explain, they can. But it's just nagging there. And when you finally go and sit down with a lawyer, get a game plan, and have it work, I didn't realize how big a burden it was for my brother and I. I like to think we're good kids who love our parents, but it lifted.
Yep.
I can't tell you how much it lifted when all of a sudden I thought, all right, we've got an understanding of this. Now, by the way, so a lot of people think, oh, well, when I run out of money, Medicaid will pay for my nursing home. Now, check me if I'm wrong. The only way Medicaid is going to do that is, one, if you even get into one of the Medicaid qualified facilities, and not all nursing homes are, and there's a waiting list for the ones that are. That's one. And two, you have to be destitute. You can't still have a house. You can't still have hundreds of thousands of dollars in the bank. There may be ways to preserve some of your money, but in general, you don't get Medicaid agreeing to pick up the tab unless about all you have left coming in Social Security.
Yeah, there's two big rules in there, Nick.
Okay.
One, liquid resources, you have to have less than $2,000. And so that is a big, stunning number to most
Boise,
people.
where we're at with my folks, has to be under $3,000.
Under $3,000. So, and state by state, they'll have little differences there. Surprisingly, you can still have your home with certain limitations, but it'll be subject to a state recovery, which is after you pass away, you can lose the home on the back end. But remember,
you're going to owe it.
That's right. You're going to owe it at some point.
And a lot of people are like, well, I want my house for my. Well, that's not the way it works. Because Uncle Sam, he and I are going to be paying for you to go there. If you have assets, we shouldn't have to pay. Those assets go at the time. So your house you can keep, but when you die, it's not going to your family if you owe federal
it goes to the federal government
$100,000 for nursing care.
That's right. And remember, before anything else, you have to pass the medical assessment.
Yes.
So the pre-admission evaluation, the PAE, and if you don't meet the criteria on that PAE, then the being financially destitute won't matter, and that stuns some people.
About that, because I remember you told me about that, which my parents did. I think with them, they have real memory care issues and things like this. What do you have to pass for that?
So in Tennessee, they have the PAE is a scale, and you need to score a 9 on it. I think there's 27 points right now. It adjusts a little bit, but they look at activities of daily living.
How much you can do.
Can you dress yourself? Can you bathe yourself? Feed yourself? Transfer safely? All of those things, they want to look at those and say, can you do those? And they rate it. You get different amount of points for your inability to do different things. And if you meet that 9-point threshold, now you've met the medical criteria. Now we look at the financial criteria. But I always tell people, don't start worrying about that financial criteria until you have them passing the medical. Now, there are steps you can do well ahead of time to protect your home, to protect some of your financial assets, so that when this day comes, and that's that proper prior planning, prevents poor performance. If you plan this stuff early, you can protect a good deal of your assets.
So what you're saying is someone, and that's great, the planning is someone could actually have no money left at all, except for a meager Social Security. And if you're living on Social Security, you know how tough that is alone. And yet still, though, physically, mentally is pretty good, doesn't meet that criteria. What do? I guess they got to get a job.
Well, they're going to have to tap into family. They're going to have to look for other resources, see what they can find.
I remember that. And I don't know if the criteria does vary from state to state, but my folks had to pass that as well. But I mean, it's pretty clear anyone that evaluates. If my folks lived alone and were caring for themselves, they would be dead. They'd be dead. If for nothing else, my dad would put a biscuit in the toaster, forget about it, and there'd be a fire and the house would burn down. They could not live alone, period, anymore. They don't know that.
Right.
That's part of the trick, isn't it?
Well, that's why one of the driving questions in all of our representation with our life care planning clients is mom and dad safe at home?
Right.
Are they safe in their environment? Because when you get that piece right, everything else will fall into place. And isn't that what matters? The most people are stunned that we're a law firm, and that's one of the first questions we ask about. And we have a huge medical questionnaire, and they say, why are you guys asking all this medical stuff? You're a law firm. Because we need to get the care right.
Yep.
And that's why we have elder care coordinators, because we need to make sure that mom or dad is safe in the environment. And once you've got that, you can get everything else in place. The legal stuff can be easy. It's getting that care correct. And because, like you said, not everyone wants to leave the house.
No.
And you have to have some real tough conversations with mom or dad. What do we want and what can we afford? And we need to balance that, because everyone wants to stay at home, but staying at home with 24-hour caregivers is frighteningly expensive. A number that just people couldn't even fathom.
You can't fathom it. Yep. And you're right. The real trick for a lot of folks, and you may be dealing with this, is that your parents don't want to accept it. You try talking to them. My dad is not driven for 5 years now. We had to take his keys away. And I can tell you this right now. If I said, Dad, hey, can you run to the market for me and get something? I'd toss him the keys. He'd go, I'll be right back, son. And he would go. And it's kind of like he's forgotten he hasn't driven for 5 years, but we've taken it away. It's in that mindset for him now. He's just kind of lost, but we had to get the keys away from him. But they don't want to accept it. And I just remember you and Tim telling me, it's kind of like when you take the car keys away, and then they're initially constantly asking, where's my keys? Well, Dad, literally, it's in the shop. We'll get it tomorrow.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh my gosh, Nick, you're lying to your dad. And you're like, darn right I was lying to my dad. Because nothing else. He's going to forget about it the next day. I'm protecting him, and I had to come up with a reason. And the thing Tim told me is just put it off to the next day. Put it up. Satisfy their answer. Dad, we'll take care of it tomorrow. But the next day, because of his memory loss, he'll have forgotten that, and you just keep passing it on until eventually he accepts it and it fades away. And that's a line of thinking. It took a while for my brother and I to come around. We didn't want to have to be deceitful to some point, but if you're completely honest with them, all it does is rile them up, and they don't remember it the next day anyway.
Yeah.
So, did I lie to my parents? Darn right I did. And do I still lie to my parents? Darn right I do. It sounds awful. And you may not say, you don't want to call it lying, Nick, but you know exactly what I was doing. And that's the only way you can handle it, because they will not accept anything short of that.
Yeah, the memory loss are always the hardest cases. They tug at your heartstrings. And again, you're driving, your North Star needs to be, what do I do to keep them safe and keep them healthy? That's what matters. If I had to tell a little white lie about their car being in the shop to keep them safe, that was a no-brainer. If you have a problem with that, that's your problem, not mine. Listen, we're going to take a break. When we come back, Evan and others, if you have questions or comments, feel free to join us. We'll get into a lot of other subjects. You know, I see a lot of ads on reverse mortgages, Tom Selleck selling them and stuff like that. And you know, Tim used to say, you know what? Reverse mortgage in certain situations might be the answer, but it's not every. We may talk about that because a lot of people ask. So we'll take a break. If you have any questions, comments, elder law, as I said, Evan, stay on hold. Others, if you want to dial it up, this guy knows his stuff. And he comes in, he tolerates me, he's nice. But we'll get it with him answering your questions right after this.